A friend offered to take me up in his airplane so I could take some video of his great-grandfather's land. I come from a place where city lots are 25 to 30 feet wide, where you could reach out and touch your next-door neighbor whether you wanted to or not. So it's mind-boggling to me that a Chicago city boy could own a slice of California wilderness, and that this land could touch me and make me grow more than I imagined I ever could. But that's what happened. Hello, my name is Philip Scorza, and I'd like to welcome you to our show, Points of Interest, History of a Homestead. I'd like to tell you a story about a piece of land I bought west of Castaic on Romero Canyon Road. 4.2 acres of Southern California land, not far from today's Magic Mountain Amusement Park. My real estate agent was frustrated with me. Nothing he showed me interested me. I thought it all looked alike. He quickly ripped the listing off the facts and pushed it at me. "Maybe you'd like this," he said. "It's a cabin in the woods." And that's how I found myself driving on a dirt road up a canyon that was getting narrower by the foot. I came around a corner and saw a gate. From there, I walked. The road was choked on both sides with brush. To my right, the creek. To my left, a forest of trees. It was then I spotted it, a cabin in the woods. To me, it looked like something on a Christmas card. I had to have it. So I entered escrow hell, and while the bank decided how high an interest rate they would stick me with, my son Casey and I went to work making the place livable.
What you doing, Case? Oh, hi.
No one had lived on the property for a few years. It was completely overgrown. So we threw things out and trimmed trees and washed walls and windows and floors. We even ran gas pipe from the house to a site for a propane tank I planned to install.
Like we don't know he's coming.
Casey just got his driver's license and was willing to run any errand as long as it involved driving my car. This came in handy a number of times, especially when it came to feeding ourselves.
Did you get the pizza? You better get out of the car with the pizza in hand. You better have a pizza with the Slim Jim, buddy.
It's on the front seat, but we won't tell our little friend here.
I had sunk $1,000 into a property I didn't yet own when the bank decided they wouldn't give me a loan. The title company wouldn't insure me because they said the road to my property didn't exist. There's a road there. How do you think I got here? People have been driving that road for years. It's called Romero Canyon Road. I have an address on Romero Canyon Road. I was told to stay tuned. It was then I decided to do some research on my road. In doing so, I found a wonderful, rich history of a place and a time and two men who homesteaded a mountain and a canyon and had only each other for a neighbor. The Homestead Act of 1862 is said to be one of the most important pieces of legislation in the history of the United States. Signed into law by President Abraham Lincoln, this act turned over vast amounts of public land to private citizens. 270 million acres, or 10% of the area of the United States, was claimed and settled under the Homestead Act, including the land I'm standing on. Norman Winkler was born in 1898 in Richmond, Indiana, and moved with his family to Los Angeles when he was 11 years old. He enlisted in World War I in 1917 and was sent to France, where he served with the 103rd Infantry Division on the front lines in the woods of Verdun. He was honorably discharged in 1919. 1 year later, he filed his homestead, this land, 160 acres of it, with the New Hall Signal newspaper. Notice is hereby given that Norman Winkler, on August 9, 1920, made homestead entry and has filed notice of intention to make final 3-year proof to establish claim to the above land. Witness was his only neighbor, Alvino Romero. 7 years earlier, in 1913, Alvino Romero laid claim to the top of the mountain and filed his homestead. Romero was born in 1850 in Santa Barbara County. It was said in his obituary, which was written by Norman Winkler and printed in the pages of the Signal, that it is too bad that no one ever took the trouble to get Alvino Romero's life history down on paper. It would have been an invaluable addition to the saga of California. He had experiences along the trails in driving large bands of sheep from Texas to California and remembered seeing large buffalo herds as he crossed the staked plains. Romero hacked out the road that leads to his ranch, the same road that goes by Norman Winkler's homestead, the same road the title company says does not exist. In 1921, Norman Winkler built his first cabin. That's also when he began planting trees, over 200 of them. He married and raised a family, 2 daughters, Marylynn and Barbara. They lived here without electricity, without a water well, and without an indoor toilet. They raised chickens and sold the eggs in town. They kept horses and cows, dogs, goats, and a donkey. They were truly a pioneer family making a go of it on the land. In 1962, Norman built the second cabin on the property. He built it without power tools and put a lot of love into it. He paneled the walls and had built-in bookcases. Norman Winkler, the World War I veteran, died in 1977. A year later, the original homestead cabin burned to the ground, killing Norman's younger brother Clifford, who had been living in it.
My real estate agent called. I had a talk with another title company, he said. They drove out and saw the property and said they would give you the loan. He said you have easement by prescription. What's that? I asked him. Once you give people permission to use a road for 5 years, you can't close it off to them. None of the property owners along the road can close it off to any other property owners. The place was mine. We closed escrow May 15. That night I slept in my house for the first time. Casey had an old school buddy over, Brandon. I had a buddy over too, Denise, my ex-wife. Summer break began at the start of June. I had a number of jobs I wanted to get done before we went back to work at the end of August. To start, Casey and I put up a small building for the generator. We had help building 2 decks, one on the side of the cabin and one on the front. My old theater buddy Jerry Castile helped, along with the Ostroms, Dennis and Sky. The dirtiest work was crawling under the cabin to run gas pipe. The hardest job, the one that took us most of the summer, was ripping off the old roof and putting a new roof on the cabin.
I see you. Yeah, he's peeing all right. I know where you live, too.
In addition to all the work, we found time to enjoy the solitude of the country with barbecues and socializing.
I still see you.
Doggy. That's my crazy mom.
Does this work?
Bucky. Yeah, look at the camera, dog.
Denise, Casey and Brandon, and Blackie the dog were all there one day when we met my neighbor, Fred Fox, for the first time. One of the things I loved right off was the animal life all around me. There was no shortage of rabbits and deer and even bobcats. I'd never lived with nature like this, and I loved it.
One of the great things about living in the wilderness was being able to take a hike in any direction and experience nothing but nature and open spaces. To the north is neighbor Dave's spread. He's the great-grandson of Alvino Romero, and he inherited the land. To the north of him is the National Forest. Castaic Lake Dam is 2 miles to the east, as the crow flies. Casey and I decided to take a hike one day. We walked along the ridge next to my road, where we could see both the dam and my cabin. Summer days were filled with work and play. I look forward to living my life in my mountain cabin, driving to my job at Canyon High across the valley. The new front porch was built and summer vacation was coming to a close. Casey and I had finished the jobs we needed to live in the canyon for the coming winter. Now I needed to begin my teaching career at Canyon High. My first day teaching was a day I will never forget. They put a phone call through to me during 5th period from a friend of mine who works for the Signal newspaper. "Hey Phil," he said, "there's a fire in your area." August 27, 2001. I was the only guy whose house burned down in what they called the Castaic Fire. Marylynn Winkler Butters is the daughter of Norman Winkler and lived the first 15 years of her life on the homestead. The night of the fire, when I went to stay at Denise's place, Marylynn called me on my cell phone. "I drove out to the cabin today. There's nothing left," she said between sobs. "When I think of my father, how he built that place and how he loved it." Marylynn was the only person who felt worse about what happened to me than me. I had lost only a few months. She'd lost a lifetime of memories of her father and mother and uncle and growing up. "It's so awful," she told me. "The trees my father planted, they're all dead. Everything's gone." I was told by the fire inspectors that it was a wall of fire 200 feet high that swept up the canyon from the south. Had I been home, I would have been trapped with no way out. That night I was on all the TV channels, NBC, CBS. CNN even had video taken from a helicopter looking down on my cabin as it burned and then caved in on itself. I called my insurance company. They sounded suitably sorry for my loss, then told me to stay tuned until the adjuster called. 4 days later, I met Martha the adjuster up at my burnt cabin. It turned out she was just the tip of an iceberg that was trying to sink my rebuilding plans for the next 18 months. Little did I know the hoops the insurance company and the bank and the county would have me jumping through. The insurance people wanted to cut me off after 4 months because I wasn't moving fast enough. And I wasn't moving fast enough because the county wouldn't accept my plans for rebuilding. It seems, guess what? That my road didn't exist. Again. I offered to send them pictures of my road. I offered to send them testimony from people who have been driving on my road. None of this would satisfy them. If my road wasn't on their map, it didn't exist. And you can't build a house in LA County if you have no road leading to your property. I learned a whole bunch of new words and their meanings, such as depreciation, disbursements, structural engineer, regional planning, building and safety, plan checker. I met a bunch of people who only knew me because I was paying them. There was a surveyor, a heavy equipment operator, a backhoe operator, the septic guy. The best new word I learned the meaning of was given to me by my friend Dennis Ostrom. He said that for me to build a house in LA County, I would have to persevere. I looked it up. To persist in or remain constant to a purpose, idea, or task in the face of discouragement or opposition.
oh boy. Three weeks after the fire, I had what was left of my cabin cleared away. Casey and I put a 32-foot trailer on the property, what they call a fifth wheel. We had direct TV hooked up, along with water and a generator. We had a place to sleep. There was one good thing in having everything burn clear to the ground like it did. I got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to watch life all around me come back in a zillion different ways. A number of big old trees died, but some of them, like the eucalyptus and the canary pine, began to sprout after a month. The earth was rich in nutrients, and here and there, green emerged from the blackened soil. Nature was exciting. The first 4 months after the fire, I built a well house for the water pump, and I planted over 60 trees that I got free from the Forest Service. 3 kinds of pines and some oak trees. I found things on the ground I never would have if the brush and dry grass hadn't burned away. It's called debris. When you live in the country, you don't throw things away. You put it over there.
Looks like the bones of some beached whale or something, huh? Artifacts for sale.
You know, a lot of the times people will ask me, Phil, what is it you do up on your property all day? When you get a day off and you could spend the day there. Actually, nobody's ever asked me that before. But it's Christmas Day. I thought I would take you around, show you the property.
This surveyor's stick marks the southwest corner of the property. And it goes up there. That whole hill there is mine. There's even a fence going up there. We can get in on the fence post for you. So that's the fence line up that way. Great view from up there. Yeah, I'll take you up there. So that's the corner of my property there. That would be the northwest corner of the property. And the fence runs down this way. These 2 oak trees at the top of the hill up here had me worried. It's the top one that's got growth on it. The bottom one down below there, I can't find any growth on it yet. I just did. I just found some growth on it, and this is good. This is a good sign, because this tree is actually burned through a hollow at the base of it. I'll take you down and show it to you. Yeah, that's the base of it, and you can see it's hollowed through. It's a great old oak tree, and it's the top of this pasture. Somebody had fenced this pasture off at one time. There's eucalyptus and a canary pine over there, both of which are coming back. It's Woody Woodpecker. This was the original cabin on the homestead, the original 320 acres. Oh, excuse me, my phone's ringing. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is what's left of the original cabin built by Norman Winkler around 1922. He homesteaded the original 320 acres. And there's more left of that cabin than mine, because there's nothing left of my cabin. Creek runs fairly deep, During that heavy storm we had about a month or so ago, it really ran pretty good. Yes, Norman's or somebody's debris reached down here at the creek. That's the road coming up there. And there's the gate, of course. There's the old driveway. And that marks the corner of my property. This would be the northeast corner. There you go. The two corners of the property. There's my shirt. December 25th, 2001. Merry Christmas, everybody.
I went to work at the start of 2002 by hiring a structural engineer to draw up house plans, having holes dug in the soil to prove it was okay to build on, and paying fees to different county agencies for whatever. The winter rains brought spring flowers and the hillsides grew stunning with color and life. Meanwhile, for the next 10 months, I had to deal with the regional planning department. When I could get through to a human being, our conversations went something like this. Looks like your property description is wrong. How do you figure that? Your gate's in section 27, not section 22. My escrow papers say my property is in section 22. They could be wrong. Are you telling me I don't own the land I think I own? I'm driving home every night to the wrong land? Wouldn't some guy notice if I lived on his land? Oh, you probably own the land all right. The absurdity of it overwhelmed me. Look, I said, I could get my neighbor to put in writing that the road is the same road they've been using ever since there's been a road here. We don't take the word of people who live in the area to decide these things. How do you decide? We have our maps. But your maps are wrong. Your map shows roads and cul-de-sacs and houses that don't exist. Come out and look at it for yourself. We don't go out and look at land either. I felt defeated, utterly and hopelessly defeated. Persevere.
It's very dark at night, and you have with just the kerosene lanterns and lamps to read by or whatever. And in the winter, the nights are pretty long. And then we would sit there and hear the packs of coyotes howling. They'd be up there on the hills, and Rover would be down here just barking his little head off, you know, and the coyotes were just ignoring him. And of course, for the coyotes, this was wonderful to have a chicken ranch move in right in their area. They loved it.
They must have loved it.
We had fox. There was a lot of foxes. Of course, a lot of coyotes. We had skunks and deer. We had some deer.
Plenty of deer. Still deer. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have seen bobcats though. The smaller.
Oh, we
versions.
had lots of bobcats. Yes.
Yeah.
And Dad would tell me that Dad always said, if you don't corner a wild animal, you're going to be fine. They're not going to bother you, which was partly true. But when you're little, that's if they're really hungry, that may not be true. But I wouldn't trade, if I could trade the rest of my life for just 1 or 2 days up here as a child, I would gladly do it.
Sounds like an ideal place.
Yeah, it was.
You know.
I loved it so much.
The only thing I could do to give me a feeling that I was moving forward was put in a water system, including a fire hydrant. So I hired Chris Kipp and his son, who brought heavy equipment to my land.
Here we go, bowling for dollars.
Chris dug a trench 3 to 4 feet deep and laid some pipe in it. The water line ran from the well house up the hill to a 5,000-gallon water tank. Gravity brought it down to the house and yard and to a fire hydrant I put in next to the road. The fire department inspected it and found it okay. One thing down, many more to go.
A plan checker is a county functionary who checks your building plans. Over the next 10 months, I got to know my plan checker through a series of meetings. Each time she gave me a list of things I needed to do, and each time I did them, and each time she checked them off my list, and each time she gave me a new list of new things I needed to do, and each time the list got shorter. Finally, Christmas Eve day, 2002, my second Christmas on the property, I faced the building and safety guy across the counter. He told me, "This is going to cost you big money to get all these permits." Like I was going to quit now? "How much?" I asked him. He punched away at his calculator a few minutes, then said, $1,495 and 73 cents, he added. I wrote out a check for that amount, got back several official stamped engraved pieces of paper, and walked out of there one very, very happy man. Now all I had to do was build a house.
We're sitting in front of the cabin, the first cabin that your father built. These are the front steps here that lead
What's
up
left
to the,
of them,
what's
yes.
left of them. Describe the cabin to us a little bit.
Well, as I think I told you, this, of course, where the fireplace is, this was a large living room, went clear to the other side,
Okay.
a real big living room. And then there was a large bedroom in the back, one large bedroom, and then the kitchen over on the other side. The porch, you'd have to see the porch. It was beautiful with the knotty pine, all the paneling knotty pine, and then rustic. It was rustic wood, like not wood that you would buy, but logs from the place, like
Okay.
old logs from the place that he built, and used wood from dead trees and things to make the railing around the porch. And then the cement steps, which we used to have our initials, my sister Barbara, we had our initials carved into that. Dad did that. And how many times I would sit out here on this porch and sing, usually World War II songs.
Oh, really? Oh, I see.
Because that's what we sang in school in those days.
Sure.
It was all about World War II.
Okay. Okay.
And those days were interesting for us even up here, Phil, because the 8 planes would come over in formation.
Oh.
We'd hear them roaring from way down there. They would fly over the place, and we'd be out there cleaning eggs or something. Here they would come, all in formation heading north. And that was, it gives me cold chills just to think about it, because it was so exciting to see them.
A couple weeks after the fire, my sister Phyllis sent me a copy of Log Home magazine. In it, I found a small log cabin house that I knew would look great in my forest of returning trees. I put down a deposit on a log cabin kit called Tahoe Getaway. I hired my neighbor Marv Metcalf to build my house. Marv had built a dozen log homes, including the 2-story mansion he and his wife and family live in south of me. The first thing we did was prepare the building site. They scraped the earth down 6 feet, then put the soil back and packed it down, taking out the larger rocks. Then we hired John Doty, the backhoe operator, to dig the foundation. After a couple weeks writing checks for $2,500 to $4,000, I came to the realization that I didn't have enough money to build a house. I would need more, much more. My old cabin was insured for only $75,000. Add contents after depreciation, add outbuilding and debris removal, and it came to around $140,000 I had to build a house with. An interesting thing you might not know about insurance companies: they don't just give you your money flat out. They give it to you in the bank. The check's in your name and you sign it over to the bank, and they then dole it back out to you when and if you have so much of your house built. The bottom line, I needed to take out a loan to build my house. A construction loan. Only I was to find out you don't apply for this type of loan after you've started construction. You apply for it first. Oops.
Good afternoon. In just a moment, we're going to join Sergeant Gene Autry and several hundred other members of the United States Army Air Forces in the Recreation Hall at Luke Field, Arizona. And today you'll hear the story of how a little 9-year-old girl helped save the lives of 2 Army Air Forces men.
America had been at war a little over 1 year when Time magazine reported on February 15th, 1943. From a ranch in California's Romero Canyon last week, a dark-haired 9-year-old Marylynn Winkler watched the flight of a glider-towing plane. Suddenly, the plane seemed to break up in midair. Why don't you tell us, in your own words, what happened that day?
My dad came down quickly to the back door and said there were parachutes coming down, and we had to go. The cliffs went down 1,000 feet, and then we took off. It had been raining, it was drizzling, we just took off immediately. But we walked, and we walked, and we hiked. And because of the mud and the rain, your feet collect so much mud. And actually, we found the men before we found the fuselage of the plane. Oh. And there was 3 men there. 2 were laying on the ground, very badly hurt. The third one was able to limp. He could walk just a little bit.
And we should also mention that 3 men, the people flying the plane, went down with the plane and died in this crash.
They did,
there were 6
yes,
people
they
on
did.
the plane altogether.
And I kept keeping the fire going and watching over them. Sure. And then Dad and I, we took one of the parachutes and laid it out in a spot where if any planes came over, they would see it. And so then I helped Dad. We were going to make a stretcher, which is pretty difficult to do when you have so little to make it with.
Right.
And then using the parachute cloth and poles, and I helped Dad to look for poles. And finally then, after doing the fire bit and being with these men all day, at dusk that evening, it was getting dark, finally people came. They had gotten there.
Okay.
And it was wonderful because there were several men and 2 horses, and they brought stretchers in.
Oh, good.
The arrival of a group of hands from a neighboring ranch was followed by the arrival of an Army rescue party. But if it hadn't been for Mary Lynn's finding and helping them, it might have been too late. So today, we'd like to join General Arnold in congratulating her. And we have the unusual pleasure of doing that in person. Men of Luke Field, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to have you meet 9-year-old Marylynn Winkler.
Today we are going to look at rebar. I never thought I'd say this to you, but would you like to see the steel in my footings? This is the north wall, where the north wall meets the east wall. That would be under the front bedroom. These bars that are sticking up, there's 32 or 33 of them, I can't remember, but they have to go through all of the logs. This is a good shot of what's down in the wall itself, the rebar that's down in there. This is the corner under the kitchen. And that's the south wall under the fireplace. The fireplace would be right in that corner there.
Early one morning, the first of 4 concrete trucks came up my road. We had ordered 5 concrete trucks, but ended up needing only 4. That's good because they were $600 a truck. I was going to be amazed at how much work we'd get done this day. Marv told me something interesting. His house weighs 6 times what my house weighs, and he didn't have to put half the concrete and steel in his that I had to put in mine. The county really stuck it to you with those huge footings, he told me. When the last truck pulled away, Marv had the crew pull the wood frame away from the pour. The concrete was hardened already. That night we were ready to start building. It took Marv and the boys a week to build the floor. Even a heavy rain couldn't slow us down. One day the logs were delivered at a cost of $16,000. A long flatbed truck pulled up my narrow canyon and unloaded 12 huge bundles of logs. The logs were 17 feet long, milled flat on one side and round on the other. I wanted flat walls on the inside of my house and round walls on the outside. It took the men a full day to fit together one row of logs. Each corner where the logs fit together had to be chiseled out by hand using a hammer and chisel. I would come home from work and find the wall one row higher each day. After 2.5 weeks, the walls, minus the peaks, were up. It had been raining and Marv and the men couldn't work, so I thought I would take some video of our progress. As I stood there, I could feel for the first time what it was like to be inside my house, and I was impressed. With the rain came the wildflowers, which meant food for the deer. Throughout the building process, my animal neighbors showed a curiosity about what was going on at Scorza Rancho. I loved seeing them around and took video of them whenever I could. This day there were 4 of them. Never before had I seen so many deer together. Finally, after about 3 weeks, the walls and peaks were done, and it was time to put the huge ceiling beams in place. For this, Marv hired, ka-ching, a crew of 10. This was an all-day process. Marv, the ex-military man, worked his crew with precision. There are 3 ceiling beams altogether, 1 for each peak. The beams needed to be carried into the house, then raised up to the peaks. Needless to say, they are very heavy. More and more, my house was taking shape.
This is my very first time looking at this framing. Casey's room. That's a utility room. I'll utilize that. This is the bathroom. I'll utilize that too. And this is where the master sleeps. Standing in the doorway of my room. Let's see what
The more we built, the more money I spent, the closer I got to running out of money. At one point, the bank said my house was only 35% finished and that they would not send me any more money until my house was 50% finished. I tried to argue with them that I needed to pay the workmen to get my house 50% finished, but they wouldn't budge. So I started to talk to lenders and ran into another wall. I found out I am unconventional. If I lived in Valencia or Van Nuys, I could easily take out a second loan, but I live in the woods and build with logs. I was told I couldn't refinance a house that wasn't built. Then I was told I couldn't take out a home equity loan on a house that doesn't as yet exist. Then I was told I couldn't take out a construction loan on a house that was already under construction. I thought about using my credit cards. I thought about cashing in my life insurance. I thought about my retirement fund. I finally ran out of money at the start of May. Marv and the workmen went to other jobs. The only thing I could do was stain and seal the logs on my house, both inside and out. After contacting every loan adjuster I ever heard of and being turned down, I finally came across one who would help me. Her name was Patty. Patty had a habit of asking for some papers, then going away for a week, then calling me up and asking for more papers. This went on for 3 months. What I found out later from our banking teacher at school was that loan adjusters work on their own schedule. They close loans according to when they need a paycheck. Patty needed a paycheck at the start of August, so that's when we closed on my construction loan. Finally, Marv and the workmen returned and started building the porch that ran on 3 sides of my house. I could at last see the end in sight. The walls are up and the roof has been skinned. There are openings where the doors and windows will go. The porch floor is framed in and flooring put down. Now I can walk on my porch. The lady at IndyMac Bank, the loan company, told me to take out more money for construction than I thought I needed, 10 or even 20% more. It's impossible to exactly estimate how much it will cost to build a house, she told me. If I don't use it all, I can turn the money back in when I change over from a construction loan to a conventional loan. So that's what I did. Through August, September, October, and on into November, Marv had the crew working to finish my house in time for its first county inspection. The porch was framed in. Railings and the ceiling were put on. I hired an electrician named Angie to design and build a solar electric system. I hired 2 guys named Jack to do heating and plumbing. I hired a crew of guys to finish the drywall on the inside And finally, I hired a guy named Scott to put a beautiful green roof on my house. It was Christmas card time again. Best of all, I hired my old pal Jerry Castile to help me finish the inside of my house. We put in the bathroom and kitchen and fireplace and windows and doors. This was when I began taking control of my project. Finally and at last, I was into county inspection time. This is where some county functionary comes to my house and tells me what I have to do to get my certificate of occupancy. That's an official document with the county seal on its face that allows me to live legally in my house. Mostly I had to do little things like put in an electric plug here, tile the floor there. I needed to get a permit for my solar electric system. The inspector never heard of a person living off the grid in LA County before. I had to have plasterboard put on the underside of the porch roof. And then there was the issue of my porch floor. It seems I used a synthetic flooring instead of the 6-inch tongue-and-groove boards my plans called for. For a while, I thought I might have to take the whole porch apart and start over, but I managed to squeak that one through. February 4, 2004, a little more than 2.5 years after my old cabin burnt down, I got my official certificate of occupancy from LA County. I was home free, except for the fact that I had to pay off a mortgage 3 times bigger than the one I started with. One of the things I promised myself when this whole thing was over was to call Marylynn Winkler Butters and invite her to my new home. 2 weeks later, a car came up my road carrying Marylynn, her son, and his daughter. We walked around the ruins of the rock cabin she grew up in.
These horns that were mounted up at the top of the fireplace. These was the inset in here and on each side.
Okay.
And these were scenic pictures, Western pictures.
Oh, nice.
Of this that were set into here. They were tile-like.
My dad built his house right here because of the view, she told me. There's a view? I asked. All I could see was a forest of trees. Before Dad planted these trees here, you could see clear down the canyon, she told me. There were no houses, no people, hardly a road, nothing. The sky was lit up with stars twinkling or the moon overhead. It was just beautiful. My dad just loved this property, she went on. He told me he promised himself that if he got out of the war alive, he was going to get himself a piece of mountain property, and he did just that. The man persevered, I offered.
And Phil, it's nice to be up here and see you today.
Thank you. I'm so glad you could come up here and join me.
When I come up and I see what you've done with the place and the trees that you planted that are growing beautifully,
Yes.
and that you cared, my dad would be really excited to know that.
I think I would have liked your father very much.
You would have. I know you would have. You had a lot in common.
Yeah, yeah.
Love to be, well, how many people want to live in the middle of nowhere?
I know two.
I felt a kinship to this man. A World War tempered Norman Winkler, enabling him to create something from this land. What tempered me, I wondered. Then it dawned on me. This same land. My need to own it, my need to build on it, my need to make something from it. I proved up on this land just like the homesteader Norman Winkler did 100 years ago. You know, Marylynn said, breaking into my reverie, I'll always miss that old cabin and everything that my dad built, but I'm glad you built such a lovely home for yourself. And I had to agree with her. There was one big thing missing from my life during the 3 years it took for me to buy my property and get my certificate of occupancy, and that was a dog. Man's best friend. This man's best friend. Always. So I went to the Castaic Animal Shelter, which is only 4 miles from my house as the crow flies. I brought home first a year-old Collie Shepherd mix named Misty. Misty had been turned into the pound by someone who couldn't keep her in an apartment. I had a tough time keeping her in a wilderness.
Then a week later, I brought home a little puppy. I named him Buster because, well, he just looked like a buster to me. Misty and Buster and I went hiking all over these mountains. We wandered and learned the lay of the land. Every now and then we come across a place where Romero or Norman Winkler made their mark, like with a fence or a post or something. The winter of 04-05 broke records with the amount of rainfall, and it seemed to all fall in a short period of time on the canyon behind my house. For 3 days, water rushed from my canyon. I heard the sound of water running in the creek down by my road for a week after. The years were going by, and I was living on my land and enjoying life. It was one of those quiet country days. I just happened to have my camera handy when some ladies on horseback came riding along. The winter of 2007, we had the second fire touch my property. This one was lazy, probably because there was hardly any wind. It burned some areas, but missed many others. I had a fire crew camp out on my property for over 24 hours. It was very reassuring. Then in 2009, something unusual started happening. The land south of me was being test drilled. Rough roads were scraped out of the mountainside to allow drilling trucks to reach the most inaccessible places. And a rumor began circulating up and down Romero Canyon that my then employer, the Hart High School District, was thinking of building a high school immediately south of me.
This whole ridge line that I'm panning is going to be cut back, cut down, become part of the high school site. That ridge line there. And just so you know where we are, I'll pull back and you should see my house in just a second.
As I watched the shiny new school begin to take shape, I got an idea. Why not preserve a link to the past by naming the street the school was being built on for the Winklers? There were no houses, so no people would be put out by asking them to change the name of their street. So I thought up the name Winkler Homestead Road. I found there were no streets anywhere in our area with the word homestead in its name. This would be a good excuse for a lesson plan for every history teacher who ever teaches at this school, I thought. Then I went to the county with my idea. Surprisingly, they said sure, but then added, so long as the William S. Hart Union High School District and everybody else in town is okay with it. So I gathered signatures and got approval from the town council as well as the school district and the church nearby, and in just 3 years and 12 county employees later, I got it done. My favorite intersection anywhere is where Winkler Homestead Road meets Romero Canyon Road. And my mailbox. So now we have a high school here. Up until they started building this high school, this canyon was just as wild as it was 100 years ago when Norman Winkler filed his homestead. Now we have a paved road and water and electricity available and nearby. Things have definitely changed, and some of that change has been for the better. If Norman Winkler were to come back today, he would recognize only a small amount of rock work that he did, and maybe some of the trees he planted. They call that progress. I wonder how long the cabin I built will last. It's been 20 years now that I've been living on this land. 20 years since my old cabin burnt down, since I learned about the two old homesteaders and the rich history of this place. I think I'm the luckiest guy in the world to have bought this land. I think about all the wonderful things I have seen and experienced living here, and how it made me grow like I never imagined I could. I remember when I moved in thinking how I wanted to live here 30 years. Just give me 30 years. I should have asked for more. This has been Philip Scorza for Points of Interest. Thanks for watching.